Welcome back, one and all, to Scramble Drill. I'm Josh Johnson, and over there is Mr. Ben Watts coming at you on a Memorial Day special edition of some Dynasty Buy Sell.
Not really a special edition. This is around when we normally record our episodes.
It's just a regular edition
Monday,
that happens on a day when we don't have to work.
Day. Yeah, it is great because we're actually able to record this, during the day and not when I'm rushing home from work.
It's a wild experience because, we get used to like the typical routine, I guess. And this is a nice little shakeup. It feels like a Saturday, even though it's a Monday.
I wish it was Saturday because then we'd have 2 more days off.
Exactly. Got to go back on the grind tomorrow. Not looking forward to it. You know how it goes.
Nope. It is what it is.
We've got some buy sell on this episode. This is fun because, we're like in the Dynasty dog days, if you will, where there's not much happening. People are, what are they? Rookie minicamp right now? Is that where they're at?
Yeah. Rookie minicamp, OTAs, that stuff.
So you get some coach speak, but you don't really get anything actionable that you can do anything with at this point in the season. So now we're trading if you're in some active Dynasty leagues, but for the most part, it's, there's nothing happening. So with this one, we're going to talk about some things you can use to trade with, some buys and sells. Believe it or not, there are some things to make moves on at this point in the season, just based on how the community is valuing different players, how some team situations are sort of shaking out. So yeah, we got some buy sells on this one.
Yep, I'm excited. You could really put all of the sells as the offseason news, the OTA coach speak. If you see a coach talk up a player, sell him right then.
You could, and it will happen. There's going to be, like, every year, there's somebody who gets in the coach speak machine. Several players usually. And more often than not, when their values spike, because it will happen every single time, you can just go sell them. You'll be fine.
You're like, oh, the Raiders said Alexander Madison can be a bell cow. Oh, sell him.
You get rid of that man right now.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, though, we do have some news. Brandon Ayuk apparently wants the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract.
I bet he does.
I do too.
Yeah, I'd take that contract.
I would also like 4 years, $120 million. Thank you very much. Just back that Brinks truck right up to my front door, unload all those dollar bills, and I will take them with a smile on my face.
Yep. Easily.
Is there any chance he gets it, though?
Maybe. He's got to get traded. The 49ers can't give it to him.
That's the thing, is it feels like the 49ers have no money. It doesn't feel like they don't have money. They are strapped. I could see him getting traded, perhaps, like the Patriots, maybe. They seem like a team that could give out a pretty large contract and trade for a receiver.
He's got to go. I mean, he's a good player, but he hasn't had the sustained success that Amon-Ra has had either, I don't think. Like, he started really slow in his career. Now he's picked up. Obviously, he's been great past 2 years, but I don't know. I feel like I want to see one more season before I'm willing to give him Amon-Ra money. But there are teams out there in need of receiver who I feel like would benefit them to give him a contract.
Yeah, he feels like the sort of guy that could put up Amon-Ra stats if he's in a situation where he's the undisputed number one. And I think for a lot of NFL teams, he would be the undisputed number one. The problem is he plays for the 49ers, who have a million weapons, and they also don't throw the ball very much. So his high watermark
over there.
Yeah, his high watermark in receptions is 78 last year. And then, or 2 years ago, in this previous season, he had 75 and it turned into 1,300 yards. So, like, I don't know. I feel like you can't give a guy
efficiency.
Maximum efficiency. He's not the sort of dude, though, that can get you 100 catches as things are currently set up. But, like, if he goes to another team where he can be
somewhere else.
Yes, he could do that somewhere else. I have zero doubts he could do that somewhere else. Problem is, he can't do it with the 49ers.
Which is why he obviously wants to be traded, because he knows the situation in San Francisco, and it's just not, I guess, most beneficial to him personally.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the moves they've made, you can tell they want to keep the band together, but they're trying to prepare for this Brock Purdy contract that's coming up, which is going to be expensive. They've already paid Nick Bosa an arm and a leg. They've paid everybody, and there's no flexibility. So you can really only have one marquee receiver, and you've already paid Deebo Samuel. So you got to get rid of him or get rid of Ayuk or figure out some way to like move off Kittle, but like they're not going to do that. And Christian McCaffrey's maybe the best weapon in the NFL, so you're not getting rid of that contract either. So like he's just sort of the odd man out in a group of really, really talented players.
Yeah. So he can want it all he wants, but he's got to get out of San Francisco first.
Yeah. This one's really interesting. I don't know how you feel about this piece of coach speak. I may or may not be using it at some point in this episode as a tiny little thing to stand on. I don't know. But Dan Campbell did say that Jameson Williams has massively improved this offseason, that he's attacking it every single day. And he looks like he's poised for, I don't think he said breakout, but just like he looks like he's going to be much improved in 2024. I don't know if you put any stock in that, but
I mean, you could in a way see Detroit as sort of like a San Francisco, where you've got the Deebo Samuel, which is obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though Amon-Ra is better than Deebo. You got your Sam Laporta, who's your other really good target. You've got a Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, who's like their Christian McCaffrey. And then you've got Jameson Williams, who could potentially play as their Brandon Ayuk, but I don't think he's as good as Brandon Ayuk.
No. We'll talk about him later on the episode. There are some things to be excited about, but this is the definition of that offseason coach speak. And so you'll have some people that will put a lot of stock in it and some others that won't. I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not putting a lot into it, but hey, if you can find somebody who's like, you know what, I'll throw you a second rounder for Jameson Williams, take it.
Yeah. The Chargers GM, Joe Ortiz, said that he believes Quentin Johnston will, quote, launch in year 2 with the Chargers.
What's he going to launch?
He's going to launch into the sun and explode.
But he's building a spaceship.
This is so funny to me. I think if you're going to put any positive stock in it, it's the fact that it's the new regime GM that's saying this sort of thing. Like, this guy didn't draft Quentin Johnston in the first round last year.
There's no attachment to him.
Right. But he's still saying good stuff about him, which I find interesting, mostly because it's been well documented. He was trash this past season.
He had a tragic rookie season.
So,
but, I mean, at the end of the day, I think you could almost throw him as a buy, because I personally like Ladd McConkey. I really do. But Ladd McConkey is the only person they brought in. They let go of everyone and only brought Ladd in. So, and it's not like they brought in a pass-catching running back either. They brought in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Those are not pass catchers out of your backfield. So, target's got to go somewhere, and maybe they can get all they can out of Quentin Johnston. Maybe they can unlock the potential that is there for him. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how much I chalk of this up to coach speak, or I guess GM speak, whatever you want to call it. But it does feel like one of those, because you get these dudes in press conferences and you start asking them questions about the rosters. And like, what are they going to say? No, this dude sucks. Like,
I don't like this player. He's only on the team because he was already here.
You will never hear the negative report about a player in these offseason press conferences. It's always going to be, oh yeah, we think he's really good because we're paying him money to play football. Like, I don't know.
I've never once heard a coach come out there and say, this guy's trash.
Never, ever. Speaking of more coach speak, Todd Monken, the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, said that he has seen, quote, tremendous growth from Rashad Bateman and that he expects him to, quote, get the ball a lot in 2024.
How much is a lot? Because he hadn't
Like-
been getting the ball much. So, like
30 times?
based on what he's been getting, like that can be a lot.
No, this one I kind of laughed a little bit because it's so obvious to me that Rashad Bateman is not something you want in fantasy football, and yet we're still talking him up.
What year is this for Rashad Bateman? Is this 4?
4? They did
I think it's
sign
year
him
4
to
for Rashad Bateman.
Did they pick up his option or did they sign him to an extension? I can't remember.
I feel like it had to have been there as option. Maybe they extended him. I don't know.
I would
don't
need to
know
look.
why you would extend him. Let me look up Rashad.
Let's see if I can find this here. I definitely should have.
No, he
Or did I
it's
get rid of
a
him?
2-year extension.
There you go.
Still, he is the number 3 option at best. Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, then Rashad Bateman, and that's in a perfect world.
Yeah.
With not a high volume passer.
I think you could make the argument too that Isaiah Likely is going to be a more impactful weapon for that offense than Rashad Bateman will.
I'm not buying it at all for Rashad Bateman. I'm sorry. Nothing against the player, but no.
Yeah, I just haven't seen it. I mean, Odell Beckham came in there and did nothing, and Rashad Bateman last year did nothing. Like they're going to be a consolidated passing pie yet again. Even though this time last year we were trying to figure out like who's it going to be? Is Rashad Bateman going to, have a good year? Is it going to be Odell Beckham? Obviously, we liked Zay Flowers. Didn't quite know what that would be year one, but it's just going to be the same thing it's always been. There's going to be 2 guys that you want, and pretty much everybody else is meh.
And unfortunately, Rashad Bateman is not one of those 2 guys.
Nope, he's one of the meh.
Hate it for you, Rashad, but it's nothing personal. This is business.
Okie dokie. This is a buys and sells episode. So would you like to talk some buys and sells?
And here we go.
Oh yes, Heath Ledger. I don't mind if we do.
Let's do this.
Ben, hit us with your first Dynasty buy.
My first Dynasty buy is it may leave some people scratching their heads. It may enrage some people. But if you look at where he's enraged, but if you look at where he's being valued, Javonte Williams just kind of feels like a buy to me. He's still 24 years old, just turned 24 years old. So he's going to play all season at 24. Does the coaching staff love him? Maybe not, but right now he's valued at like a mid-second round pick, according to Keep Trade Cut. And they didn't really bring in any competition for him. Like they bring in Audric Estime. Okay, I don't like Audric Estime coming out of Notre Dame. They've also got Jaleel McLaughlin. If you believe in Jaleel McLaughlin, sure. But that personally doesn't mean anything to me. Samaje Perine is nothing at this point. So you're heading into a season where they're kind of retooling things, and Javonte Williams is kind of still the clear-cut RB1. Now, will they move off of him? It's very possible next season. But for right now, for a young running back, I feel like Javonte Williams is a really good buy for me, especially if you're in a team that needs running back and you want to contend. I could definitely see myself buying some Javonte Williams at his current price.
Yeah, it looks like they're setting up this backfield to be may the best man win. And like if you believe one of the other dudes is the best man, that's fine. But like I can't see a scenario where Javonte Williams is not the best man in the backfield.
Yeah, it's just a talent thing. Like he's more talented than every back there. And we try to sweep under the rug that he was coming off of an injury last year, like a pretty serious knee injury. So the fact that he was still the RB1 coming off of that, now you're a year removed from it, over a year, and they didn't really bring in major competition. Yeah, give me Javonte this year.
Yeah, the other thing too the Broncos, and Sean Payton has done this over the past decade, basically. The Broncos last year were top 5 in pass attempts to running backs, or target share percentage to running backs, or whatever. However, whichever way you want to look at it, they threw the running backs a very large amount last year. And so if Javonte Williams happens to be the main guy there, it would follow that even though, yes, they've got Samaje Perine, yes, they've got Jaleel McLaughlin, the main dude is going to benefit from the fact that they're throwing the ball a ton to running backs. He happens to be a capable pass catcher too. So like it just feels like it's a very wide open situation. And if you don't believe in the talent, that's one thing. But like he does seem to me, to you too, the best talent in the backfield.
And I'm not telling you to pay a lot for him, but if you're a contending team, you need a flex play, an RB, maybe even an RB2 if you got nothing. Throw something at the Javonte owner, see if it sticks. Like, I'm not saying pay a first round pick for him. No, I'm absolutely not saying that. But if I think I'm on the cusp, I need a running back too. Let me just give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, well, you didn't pay a ton for him, and he's probably going to get a contract somewhere with somebody. So his value's not going to dissipate after this year either. He just turned 24.
My number one buy here is Mr. Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. This one to me is a bit interesting.
Future inmate.
Future Selly. Rashee Rice. Like, the only thing with him is we're terrified of the accident and the charges coming from that, the reckless endangerment or whatever it ends up being. I don't know exactly what it's going to end up being. He's probably going to miss a couple games this year.
He's fine.
But beyond that, all the other things that have come up with him, legally speaking, seem to be nothing. Like there was another a case a few days ago where I think he was accused of assault or something, and then the person withdrew accusations. It's like nothing will come of that. It sounds like he's a knucklehead, but from all the things that we can see right now, it doesn't seem like any of these legal issues are really going to affect his career. So that being the case, yeah, none of this seems like it's really going to stick. So basically, worst case scenario in my mind is he misses 6 games for the accident. And if he misses 6 games, and we're looking at this in a dynasty perspective, his wide receiver 35 price tag on Keep Trade Cut is ridiculous.
That's going to come up quick.
Yeah, I mean, he was excellent as a rookie last year. He performed extremely well in metrics that you want to look at, like yards per route run and first downs per route run. So, I mean, he was top 15 in first downs per route run as a rookie. There's a role for him in this Kansas City offense. And as long as you're a competent wide receiver attached to Patrick Mahomes, there's always going to be value there. And he's young. He's 23. So, yeah, they brought in Xavier Worthy. Yes, they brought in Marquise Brown. But, like, we've already established that Rashee Rice is a good NFL receiver, and a good NFL receiver attached to Patrick Mahomes is worth a lot more than wide receiver 35 in Dynasty.
I think there's somewhat, it's not a big one, somewhat of an argument for this year, only because they do bring, he's going to miss 6 months, or not, he's going to. We don't know how much he's going to miss. I don't think he misses any more than 6 games. And I guess they do have 2 other wide receivers there. Going forward, obviously, Xavier Worthy is the long-term option there. So Hollywood's on a 1-year deal. He's definitely gone after this year. So only this year is the knock. But Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice play different roles as receivers. So that I don't see those 2 guys really leeching each other in a negative way. If anything, I see it's positive. Like Rice is going to keep things over the middle and open things up deep for Worthy, and then Worthy is going to make it where you can't just come up and just stop Rice either. So I think they help each other really well, but this year maybe is somewhat of a negative because you do have the Hollywood factor there.
Yeah, and that's potentially true. I think at the same time, looking at this in like a dynasty window, the boxes that Rashee Rice was checking were elite wide receiver production in the future boxes. We're talking about He had over 2 yards per route run. He was 10th in the NFL in first downs per route run. Things that signify at some point this dude is going to be a monster. I don't know when you can project that, and I know they spread the ball around a lot, and they have done that in the past. So I don't know when it will happen necessarily, or like to what extent it will happen. But we did see that as the season went along and into the playoffs, Rashee Rice was the number one wide receiver. It wasn't close. He was incredibly, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. He was incredibly involved in the offense. So
yeah,
those are things you want to see from a rookie wide receiver. And I think people are overreacting a little bit to this legal trouble.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm very good with Rashee Rice. My number 2 is a guy a lot of people probably aren't even thinking of, is Darnell Mooney. Atlanta just traded for him, gave him a contract. I think it was a 2-year contract. Even still, it's a 2-year contract, I think. And we think Kirk is going to start 2 years. Right? So Look at the target options in Atlanta. Obviously, Drake London is the clear number 1. Clear number 2, Kyle Pitts. But there's kind of a void at 3. And I think that definitely all goes pretty much to Darnell Mooney. Even if, let's say, okay, that Drake London is a dominant wide receiver 1, comes out 27, 28% of the target share. Some people, not necessarily me, but even you, Josh, would say, have some questions about Kyle Pitts, you'd say, right?
Potentially a question or
There's
two.
some questions about Kyle Pitts. Okay. Even if Kyle Pitts doesn't have any question marks and he is as good as at least I hope and think he can be, we've consistently seen Kirk Cousins produce with 3 weapons. We've seen Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson, and Jefferson in a completely dominant, 180 targets a year role. We've seen the third option with Kirk Cousins does have success. And we've seen Darnell Mooney have success with Justin Fields, where he had 140 targets one year and over 1,000 yards. So where Darnell Mooney is kind of just valued as a throw-in, I would be trying to get him as a throw-in in trades, because it's not like Kyle Pitts and Drake London are going to have 100% of targets. Like, the other targets got to go somewhere, and I think it's a pretty clear, like, Darnell Mooney is the 2, wide receiver 2 in the offense. So I think he has a sneaky good season. Even if you don't have any questions about Kyle Pitts, I think there is a way and a role for Darnell Mooney to succeed. So be trying to add him in throw-ins in trades, because you could get a sneaky flex play.
I just punched in Darnell Mooney into Keep Trade Cut just to see like what his equivalent value is. He's valued as the 2024 310.
Yeah. Next, so nothing. A throw-in.
He is valued as absolutely nothing.
And I'm not saying he's going to come out here and have an amazing season, but he is going to be playable some weeks. And that's even if you don't have questions about Kyle Pitts. If you do have questions about Kyle Pitts, and maybe Kyle Pitts isn't what at least we hope he will, he's going to have an even better season.
I mean, heck, I'm looking at my projections right now. I've got him projected for 1,000 yards.
There you go.
I'm very high on Kirk Cousins, but I think a 700 to 1,000 yard season is probably super possible for
very
Darnell
much
Mooney.
in play.
Yeah.
And you're getting him for literally a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. That's an easy buy. That's like, I'll go send that right now. I mean, because thirds are never anything. Those are, you're lighting those picks on
Unless
fire
you
9
took
times
Puka.
out of 10.
That was your 1/3 that you hit on, was Puka.
Well, I didn't even draft him. I picked him up.
Well, no,
off
but
waivers.
like people who took him in the 3rd round, like,
Oh, well, yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
that's your outlier. But that doesn't happen often.
My second buy is Mr. David Montgomery. He is not sexy.
Really.
Fully admit that. But
Well, neither of mine two been either, so it's fine.
David Montgomery, though, has contract insulation that I feel like some of the other guys around him don't have. he signed a 3 or 4 year deal last year.
I wanna
Came
say
in
it
and
was
was
a 3-year deal.
incredibly effective in a great offense. And the argument for Dave Montgomery is not a anti-Jahmyr Gibbs argument. It's really more of this offense is really good. They're going to be a really good team for the next few years. And Jahmyr Gibbs can do his thing while Dave Montgomery can still also be incredibly effective for competing teams. I looked at from weeks 8 to 18 last year, so not a small sample size, but that is Jahmyr Gibbs is coming down the stretch and he's crushing it, right? This is not the beginning of the season when Jahmyr Gibbs was not super involved in the offense quite yet. And from that point, or from that sample, Jahmyr Gibbs was great. He was the RB7 in points per game, but David Montgomery was also the RB18 in points per game over that stretch. So his price tag right now, I don't think a lot of people want to buy him. And I don't think, I feel like people are more willing to sell him than people are willing to buy him, if that makes sense. Just because it's not great. Like, he's not the RB1 on his team. He kind of is more reliant on touchdowns. But with that team, there's a lot of rushing touchdowns to go around. And Jahmyr Gibbs can get his while David Montgomery also delivers on his value right now. So it's not like he's worth nothing. I still think he's probably worth like a mid to late second. But when you're looking at some of those guys in your rookie drafts in the mid to late second, or, trying to get Dave Montgomery as potentially a throw in a bigger deal, he's the kind of guy that is not sexy, but is probably very impactful on competing rosters for the next 2 years,
He's going to get
maybe.
you points week in and week out.
Absolutely. He's not going to win you your week, but he's just a very nice competing piece to have. I think he's very overlooked, but he's just very nice to have.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. The only, I guess, and this is probably a reason why you can buy him, is Jahmyr Gibbs got way more goal line touches than we thought he would. Mid to late season, he kind of took over as that goal line back. But if anything, that's probably knocks David Montgomery's price a little bit lower. And I'm still not worried about Montgomery either. Again, it can be a Kamara and Evan Ingram, or Kamara and Mark Ingram kind of role there, where obviously Gibbs is the one you want, but Mark Ingram is very startable.
Yeah, and this is 2 years in a row where the Lions have had two running backs that are fantasy relevant. 2 years ago, it was Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. And obviously, Swift was the sexy guy. Everybody wanted DeAndre Swift, but then Jamal Williams had 1 million touchdowns. And this past year, it was Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And nothing's going to change. They're going to keep rolling two running backs. They've locked them in. They're going to be extremely effective on the ground. And they're both going to be really efficient. I think there was a point last year when everybody was tired of David Montgomery. They were like, he's not as good as Gibbs. He averaged 4.6 a carry. He was still very good on the ground.
No, he's not as good as Gibbs. We knew that.
Right. They do different
You knew
things.
this was going to happen.
Gibbs is a home run hitter, but David Montgomery will absolutely take the soul from a defense because he's not necessarily getting 40 and 50-yard runs every game, but he'll give you a solid 4.5 to 5 yards a carry and just be just grind on the defense.
Yeah. You'll take that.
You will take that. Dan Campbell loves him some David Montgomery. So whatever that's worth.
There you go. Last buy, another not sexy name, but Christian Watson. He's the wide receiver 38 on Keep Trade Cut. The biggest knock on him has been his hamstring injury. So if he can ever figure that out, I think he's got a shot to be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay. I mean, the other thing is Jaden Reed, who I think is probably better than Christian Watson, but I don't really have a ton of conviction in saying that. I got Christian Watson in the 10th round of a startup last month. I'd be willing to take shots on Christian Watson. He's got upside. He's flashed that many times. We've seen multiple 20-plus point games from Christian Watson. It's all been injuries in the hamstring. So if I can get him for wide receiver 38, that feels kind of like a throw-in to me. Yeah, I will be taking shots at Christian Watson.
Did you see his quote about what he attributes his hamstring injuries to?
I saw something about that, but I don't remember exactly what he said.
He said he thinks it's because he has asymmetric legs.
Okay.
He's like, one leg is longer than the other one. So I got hamstring injuries.
All right, then.
That might be a very valid medical reason for why they're happening, but it's just very funny. That he's like, so Christian 1.5 legs or something.
With 1.5 legs, if he can go out there and put up some 20-point weeks, a lot better in best ball. But
oh yeah.
I mean, for dirt cheap, I'll take it.
He's super cheap. I don't know, like, I guess he's worth a third right now or something like that.
I'll take him for a third.
I'll take him for a third. Yes, please.
Yeah, easy.
My last buy, and this one might even just be more of a joke than anything. I'm not sure how confident I am in this one, so I don't know. Jamison Williams.
I'll talk you out of it.
I know you will.
Yeah.
This is not a ton of conviction here, but I do think there is some argument for Jamison Williams being a buy. He has not been amazing. He's played 18 games, hasn't really done much. But I think if you bake in some context where year one, he was coming in off an ACL injury, and then this past season, because he's a dummy, he got suspended for gambling. So he missed a bunch of games there. So like he hasn't had a full season where it's been an uneventful NFL season. He gets to get plugged in, and he hasn't had a normal year yet. Year 3, it's finally a normal year. He was a first-round pick, so there's something there. This regime drafted him, so like they want him to succeed. They want that first-round pick to pan out, and he has shown. Yeah, he has shown flashes where there's been several moments when it's like, dude, this guy could be really good if he would be on the field all the time. And that's been basically the one issue, is he's not been a full-time player. But even still, he's a big play waiting to happen. We've seen it time and time again, where he gets in, he plays 40% of snaps, and he has like 3 targets, 2 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Like that is very much a normal Jamison Williams thing. The reason to be excited is because he could be a full-time player this year. They don't have another wide receiver 2. Like Jamison Williams, he's the dude. He is the wide receiver 2 for the offense, which probably means he could be the pass catcher number 3, maybe even pass catcher number 4, depending on how involved Jahmyr Gibbs is in the passing game. But that's still an improved situation from what it was last year. If you just let the dude play 70, 80% of snaps consistently, he's the sort of player where maybe it's better in best ball. But I mean, he is an 80-yard touchdown threat on any given play. Just the more times he's on the field, the more opportunity for him to be successful. And there was the quote from Dan Campbell that he's been massively improved, or at least has looked a lot better this offseason than in years past. So I don't know. Take that all for what you will. I will say he's pretty cheap right now. I don't think you have to throw out a whole lot to go get him. So he's kind of an upside guy that I would consider going to get.
I think you should try to sell him for a second rounder with that argument.
You probably could do that. I mean, it depends on who you want to go get in the second, but
I don't know. I don't have a ton of conviction on Jamison Williams, but there are the pluses for him, specifically draft capital and target competition. So we'll see.
We shall see. Okie dokie. Let's go over here to some sells.
I think our sells are far spicier than our buys.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get into some arguments here, but this is going to be a little bit more fun. Let's talk some sells. Hit us with your first one.
Okay, my first sell, this is like, I guess mine's kind of an obvious first sell, but it's Jordan Addison.
Oh, yeah.
He's currently valued at the wide receiver 22 on Keep Trade Cut, which really surprised me because I've got him lower than that right now. I mean, you lose Kirk Cousins, which is why I'm high on Darnell Mooney, and you bring in a rookie quarterback who really did not thrive with much passing volume at Michigan. You still got Justin Jefferson. You still got T.J. Hawkinson. He's going to come back from the injury. And you look at where Jordan Addison thrived and where all this production came from. It's just volatile. He got a lot of touchdowns. Most of them came when Justin Jefferson was out. So he was the de facto wide receiver 1 there. So with Justin Jefferson coming back, T.J. Hawkinson going to be coming back, going to be healthy, at some point this season, and a rookie quarterback who did not use much passing volume at Michigan, wide receiver 22 is way too hot for my liking. I would definitely be selling Jordan Addison for whatever I can get.
Yeah. This one feels pretty obvious because it's like, is he going to be the second guy you want? I mean, maybe for the first few weeks until Hawkinson comes back. And I don't know, maybe the whole season. Because if Hawkinson comes back and just isn't quite himself, I could see that. But then it's like, okay, he's the second guy, clear second in an offense that, like, you don't know how good it is because how good is JJ McCarthy? You can go sell that 1,000-yard rookie season. If he was going in there and you had like any quarterback who could support some volume, and I knew that, sure, I'm very okay. Like, I think Jordan Addison is a really good player, and he's a first-round wide receiver. But Justin Jefferson is going to get so many targets in that offense with a rookie quarterback that you can't. There's no way I can trust Jordan Addison on a week-to-week basis. Like, he could go out there and have 4 targets while Justin Jefferson's got 13. Yeah.
And like, if he's not scoring touchdowns, which is what he did a lot of last season, his production's coming way, way down.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably a better real-life player.
And I should have had this up. I would love to be able to, like, down tier from him to other guys at wide receiver 22's price tag. Let me pull up.
Would you try and do like Jackson Smith and Jigba plus a little something?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would love to go to JSN plus. He's at, let's see. Okay, 22. Behind him is DK. I would love to get DK plus T. Higgins if I can get T. Higgins plus. Lad McConkey's at wide receiver 29 on Keep Trade Cut. If I can get Lad plus for Jordan Addison, I'm doing that every single time. Yeah, there's too many guys that I think are going to outproduce him that are lower in the rankings. So if I can get them plus for Jordan Addison, I'm doing that.
Yeah. It's funny. DK and T. Higgins, like, I would just prefer those outright to Jordan Addison. So if you can get any sort of plus, like, yes, please. My number 1, sell. I don't know if this is spicy, but to me, it just feels obvious. CJ Stroud is way too expensive.
Excuse me?
This dude is not the QB2 in Dynasty. I don't care that he's valued as the QB2 on Keep Trade Cut. He got up to the QB1 like a month ago. It's ridiculous. He does not deserve to be there. You've got Patrick Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, who are still in their prime. Like, CJ Stroud is not a running quarterback that can break fantasy. He's a younger Joe Burrow. And like, Joe Burrow's great. You love Joe Burrow.
I love
we
Joe
talk
Burrow
about him all the time.
I love CJ Stroud.
Yeah, he's a great quarterback. Joe Burrow is an elite NFL quarterback. But in order to be the QB2 in Dynasty, CJ Stroud would either have to be the best quarterback in football, or he would have to run the ball significantly more than he did in his rookie year. And neither one of those things are true or are going to happen in the next couple of years. Patrick Mahomes is always going to be a better NFL quarterback than CJ Stroud. I would argue that Joe Burrow and Josh Allen are going to be better NFL quarterbacks than CJ Stroud over the next couple of years. So, like, he's not going to give you that top ceiling as a passer, and he just doesn't run. So he's great. And this is not a CJ Stroud is not a good player argument. This is for fantasy football, rushing is king, and he doesn't run enough to capitalize on that QB2 price. And he's not an elite enough passer yet in order to be the number 1 dude. Like, it's literally just Patrick Mahomes. That is the only guy who's primarily getting his points passing that can be this elite of a player just mostly through passing. Nobody else does it.
Yeah. I can see some of the price tag being warranted because they do bring in Diggs, but even then at QB2, I'm completely out. The earliest I would take him is 4. I'd go Allen, Mahomes, and I would still take Jalen Hurts, and then CJ Stroud at 4 is where I would go. If I can get Hurts straight up for him, I'm doing that. If I can add a little something to him, or like in the case of he's on keep trade cut at 2, we don't live and die by keep trade cut. So if I can find a guy who does, and like I can get Mahomes for him, I'm doing that. If I can add just a little bit and go get Josh Allen, I'm doing that. So I guess people are going to hear what you're not saying, but I know what you're saying. Like, it's not that he's bad. I think he's a top 5 fantasy quarterback personally, but he's not in that tier with those guys just yet. So if you can get one of the guys that are there, I would do that.
Yeah, I think he's capped out at what Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow's never going to be valued as the QB1 or QB2 in Dynasty. It just won't happen because of the style of quarterback that he is. And I think CJ Stroud, while he's great, he's much more of a Joe Burrow type of guy where there's going to be some peak seasons, but there's also going to be some valley seasons just because of the nature of primarily passing quarterbacks. Like, in one season, he could give you 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. That's great. But then the very next season, he can give you 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. And it's not going to maintain year over year. And so he's not going to be valued at that peak of the guys like Mahomes, who throw for 30 touchdowns or finish as like QB5 or better just about every year. Or the Josh Allen, who's got the rushing, or the Jalen Hurts, who's got the rushing, or the Lamar, who's got the rushing. He won't be year over year in that same area code as some of those other guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. I kind of agree. He's right there with Joe Burrow, which is going to put you at QB 5, 6 year in and year out.
Yeah,
which is great.
And I'm good. If we're conversation is QB 5 or 6, I'm good. That's great. That's where he should be.
But not 2.
Not 2. 2 is too pricey.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Go ahead and hit us with your second sell.
All right, here's where some of the spice begins. And
Bring
my
it.
sell is Sam Laporta in Dynasty.
What?
I can already what? You want to sell the tight end 1 as a rookie? I don't want to. And again, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying sell him for cheap, but he operated a lot off touchdowns. He is in an offense with a lot of target competition, and he posted the lowest tight end 1 season in the past 6 years. 2017 is the last season that what he just did would have been the tight end 1. So, all that being said, if I can get the mother load of a haul for Sam Laporta, I would do that.
What would you consider the mother load of a haul?
Let's think about some tight ends around here. If I can get Mark Andrews and maybe a first, doing that. Trey McBride and maybe a first, I'm doing that. If I can get a guy who loves Mark Andrews and wants to quote unquote upgrade from Sam Laporta, or quote unquote upgrade from one of those guys for a Sam Laporta, I'm doing that because I think we talked about this last episode of what's your window for Dynasty. And it's not that Sam Laporta is going to be bad. He's going to be really close with all of these guys, I think. And he's probably going to be better than them, let's be honest. But if I can down tier just a little bit and get a guy like a McBride or an Andrews or a Kincaid and something decent on top of that for Laporta, I would be doing that.
Yeah. +2, he was tight end 3 in points per game for last season. Travis Kelce and TJ Hawkinson were above him.
Yeah. He was the tight end 2 until Hawkinson got hurt. Like that's when he caught him was that time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is spicy. I don't know if I would have the gumption to be able to do it. Because like once you get a guy like that.
Lowest tight end 1 season in the past 6 years.
Yeah. He's the sort of dude that typically you would just hold on to him. You're like, great, he's good. I'm just going to ride him in, let him go. But yeah, I can see where if you can pivot, I guess, into somebody with some higher upside, that might be the only thing. Like he was great
Maybe
last
not
year.
even higher upside, but the same upside.
Yeah. And maybe some safer floor. Because like he thrived on touchdowns.
And I'm not saying that he's not even the tight end one in Dynasty. That's where I've got him. He is.
Yeah.
But I think with that being said, coming off his rookie season, like if you sold Kyle Pitts for a haul after his rookie season where he had 1,000 yards, you feel pretty good about yourself right now. And I'm not saying that Sam Laporta is going to hit a Kyle Pitts cliff and A, get injured, or B, have horrendous quarterback play over the next 2 years, because he's not. He's got Jared Goff. But still, if I can get a decent amount for him, where I can get another young tight end who's going to produce plus, I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I don't hate it. It is spicy, but I don't hate it. I understand the reasoning behind it, and I'm with it. Like, tight ends last forever. If you can go get McBride plus, if you can go get Andrews plus, Hawkinson plus, like those, Andrews is 30. Is he 30 yet? Or is he still 29?
And he's 28.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, he's going to be great for 6 more years at least. Golly. And we play Dynasty in 3 to 4 year windows. So like all the dudes around him aren't going away anytime soon, except Kelsey, but nobody values Kelsey and Laporta. Like those are 2 different conversations.
Yeah.
I kind of dig it. I'm with that. That is smart in terms of Dynasty, because in Dynasty, it's not necessarily have the number one player. It's acquiring value on your roster, and you can pivot Laporta into value on your roster.
See? Big brain.
Big brain stuff. My second sell is Josh Jacobs. This is truly for one reason alone. I think the Dynasty community felt like him going to Green Bay sort of salvaged his Dynasty value, and in some ways it did. But at the same time, I think it's overlooked how little security he has. It will all come down to how good is he this year. That is it. But in Dynasty, you want safety with player values, and Josh Jacobs' player value could go any number of different directions from this point on. Like, it is not locked in. He has no value security because his contract is essentially a 1-year deal. And not to mention they drafted Marshawn Lloyd, who we both would agree is a very, very talented running back. So like he's got potential competition if Jacobs isn't all that. And like, I don't know what to do with the fact that 2 years ago, he was potentially the best running back in football. And last year he was maybe not even arguably the worst. Like he was terrible. I don't know if that was due to the fact that his offensive line stunk or if it was that he stunk.
Bad.
Regardless, it was awful, like awful. So the Packers sort of hedged their bets a little bit. They said, yes, we still think he's got something in the tank, but at the same time, you can't really ignore the fact he was genuinely terrible the year before. And so they baked that into the contract. And if he goes out and he's not awesome and doesn't live up to what they paid him in year 1 salary, he's out of there. They're like, we got Marshawn Lloyd, we got AJ Dillon still. That's good enough.
Okay,
we'll roll
don't
with them
talk
too.
to me about AJ Dillon.
Listen,
AJ Dillon's not good.
You only heard him as a throw-in at the very end of the argument, but no, he's not a direct competition. The real competition is Marshawn Lloyd and the fact that Josh Jacobs might just not live up to his contract.
Yeah, no. His value cannot get higher than it is right now.
No.
It cannot. It can't happen. If he's
And
the
I guarantee
RB1,
you-
his value is going to dip.
I guarantee you there's somebody in the league, in your leagues, that looks at Josh Jacobs and goes, oh yeah, he got a contract. The Packers are a great landing spot. I'll go buy him as my RB2 for the future. Sell him. Sell him for everything you can get. Because I think you can get a pretty decent amount from certain non-sharp league members. Because I think most people, if you're sharp, you'll sort of just be like, I don't know how I feel about Josh Jacobs. Like, he's fine if you can get him on the cheap. It kind of all depends on what you end up buying him for. And I think there will be some members of your leagues that just aren't super sharp about his value, and they will pay a pretty decent amount to go get him if they need a running back. And in those situations, I would move off him. Hit us with your third and final and maybe spiciest one yet.
Oh, it's a good one. On my cell, I have CD Lamb.
What?
CD. Sell him. Not for
This
much,
is
not for a lot.
interesting.
Not for little. But he just had 400 points. Wide receiver 1. He's going to get a contract. So I am not out on him by any means. He's in tier 1 with Jefferson and Chase, in my opinion. But you've got people in the community who, and maybe even rightfully so, are putting him at wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. And I don't think his value can go up from here. I mean, CD Lamb just peaked right now. Now, is he going to give you another 5-6 years of elite production? Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. But you have a window here to absolutely cash out on CD Lamb and get everything for him. Like, if you can go get something on top of Jamar Chase for him, do it. If you can get Jefferson either straight up, or some people may even pay something on top of Jefferson to get CD, like if they are a true contender and like I think CD's going to outstore Jefferson, do it. Like if you can get Amon-Ra plus for CD Lamb, do it. Like if you can get a decent amount on top of Marvin Harrison for CD, I think you can do it and feel good about it and just cash out at the absolute max. This is the max value that CD Lamb's ever going to get right now. 25 years old, coming off his best season ever, wide receiver 1 finish. He just maxed out right now. So if you can get the moon for him, I would do that.
I've been thinking kind of quietly to myself, how do I want to say this? Over the past few years, we have had certain players hit a level in value when the only reason you would ever sell them is if you got absolutely godfathered, where somebody comes in with an offer that is just so absurd that you can't say no. I think of Jonathan Taylor a couple years ago after he had his RB1 season. You could not buy him for the literal moon. Justin Jefferson, coming off his wide receiver 1 season. Same thing. Couldn't buy him for anything. Like, it did not matter. You could offer every single piece on your roster, and it was like, no, it's not enough. Jamar Chase got there recently as well. There have been a few players that it's like, it does not matter what you offer. The answer is no. CD Lamb has entered that conversation in Dynasty where maybe it's not to the extent that Justin Jefferson was after his wide receiver 1 season, but it's in the neighborhood where you can offer every single good thing you have, and the answer will still be no. And I think that all of those players, after they got to that ridiculous level in value, that the Godfather offers, or the 3 firsts plus that people were offering for those players, they feel like there's a pretty decent chance they would feel better about themselves if they took the offer. Jonathan Taylor especially, because running backs, that's been rough. But even Justin Jefferson, like, I think you can make the argument now where at his peak value, I guess it was maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, when he just had 1,800 yards and was like, okay, this is just, like, you could offer 4 first-round picks, and the answer was no. Or you could offer, I remember specifically there was a moment on a big fantasy football show when somebody asked, would you accept Amon-Ra St. Brown and 2 first-round picks for Justin Jefferson? The answer was unequivocally no. And I think if you were to revisit that now with some of the players that have come out in the draft, and you add, let's put some names to it. Let's say with those 2 first-round picks, you added Garrett Wilson and you added, I don't know, Roma Dunze to Amon-Ra St. Brown for Justin Jefferson. You'd be like, oh my gosh, I'll take the package.
Yeah.
I don't know. Food for thought.
It is not, I'm trying to like actively try to sell. I mean, maybe actively try to sell him. I don't know. But it is, yeah. I mean, it is just, he is at the absolute peak he's ever going to be. And I think if you can get everything for him, I would move him. His value is not going to go up from here.
Do you think that's a rule of thumb right now where there's going to be a guy that does this time next year too, where somebody has an amazing season and their value goes just through the roof. Is that just like a rule of thumb moving forward? If you have the guy, fill in the blank, whoever it is, maybe it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. This time next year, he goes and has 1,600, 1,700 yards, and we're like, okay, he's the number one dude. You can't buy him. If a dude gets to that level, do you just sell him automatically because the value is so ridiculous?
I mean, maybe so, honestly. And I sometimes fall victim to this as I fall in love with certain players and I just don't want to move them because I don't want to have them. But if you're talking from strictly a value perspective and you want to get the most value for your team, then yes. Like if Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow both have healthy seasons and Jamar Chase goes out there and has 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns with Joe Burrow, which is very possible. Yeah, I think you sell Jamar Chase. If Justin Jefferson pops off. There's some guys I don't necessarily would do it for, like say Marvin Harrison. Like say Marvin Harrison goes out there and has 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns as a rookie. He's probably going to jump to the Dynasty wide receiver 1, but I wouldn't sell him yet just because he is year 1 of his rookie season. So he I wouldn't do it for, but the guys like Amon-Ra and Jefferson and CD who are going to be on their second contracts. And not that I think their value is going to diminish by any means. Like in 2 years, CD Lamb's probably still going to be a top 5, 6 guy, similar to AJ Brown. But his value won't be increasing to whereas like Marvin Harrison Jr. could be the wide receiver 3, jump to a Dynasty wide receiver 1 overall. And his value still is going to go up there because he's got 4 more years on his rookie contract.
Right. Yeah, I'm with it. I've got CD in a Dynasty league, and I have received offers already this time in the offseason for CD Lamb. And like, for the most part, it's been, yeah, no, this is not enough. But like, if that certain offer came along, might be worth doing it.
Food for thought.
My last sell here. This is a value play more than anything else. And in your Dynasty leagues, you just want to keep accruing value on your lineup. Tyreek Hill is a sell in Dynasty. And I understand that he's I understand he's potentially the wide receiver 1 in 2024. I get that. But he is older. His value's not going up. Like he could be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy, score 400 fantasy points this coming season, and his value won't increase. In fact, it will go down, it is wild, but it is what it is. He is nearing the 30-year-old mark. And like with guys like this, like take Devontae Adams, for example. Guys like this that are elite players playing into their 30s, they're not necessarily going to deliver less production for you, but they're going to lose value incrementally year over year. Devontae Adams just had like 1,200 yards this past season. He was good. He wasn't a top 5 fantasy receiver. He wasn't the creme de la creme, but he's still very good. And he lost a lot of value year over year. And I think Tyreek Hill's getting to that point where it's like, yeah, he could have 1,700 yards next year, but he could also have 1,300 yards and he could drop a lot in Dynasty value. And these are the guys that you want to capitalize on before they really hit that value cliff. And I think he's a guy that it may not happen, but he's certainly going to lose value from this point until next season. So if you can pivot into a more insulated receiver in terms of value, I would do it. You honestly could probably add something to Tyreek Hill and not a significant something and get to Marvin Harrison Jr. I would be doing that so fast. So I know when we've put out rankings on our Instagram and we have Tyreek Hill at like wide receiver 10 or lower, people lose their minds. They're like, he needs to be top 5. Like, no, that's not how Dynasty works. It's not how Dynasty works.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you said there. I mean, it's the value game. Like Tyreek Hill has been very good at avoiding the value drop off. But like Christian McCaffrey, like it's coming at some point, guys. So if you can get top dollar right now, I would do it.
Yeah. He probably is on a lot of competing teams, and I understand wanting to hold on to him because he could be one of the more valuable pieces this coming season in fantasy. But at the same time, you have to toe that line of, am I trying to get the maximum value on my roster, or am I trying to like push and win the league? And I understand both arguments. Like I understand you want to get value, and in that case, sell Tyreek. You'll get a lot. I also understand wanting to keep him. Like he's one of those few guys that it's okay to keep him, but I do think that if you're going to sell him, you got to sell him right now, because I don't think you'll get the same value that you would right now. You won't get that next year.
Yeah.
That wraps up buy sells.
There we go.
Anything else you want to hop into before we get out of here?
Nothing stands out to me, no.
Doing anything fun for Memorial Day?
No, I'm at home chilling, not wanting to go back to work.
I saw you watch Dune again. How was that? How was that not, like watching it in your living room, not in the theater?
Oh, just as good as the first time, honestly. Different, being in the living room, but man, that movie's something else, dude.
It's incredible.
It's
such a good
fantastic.
movie. I need to go watch it again now that it's on HBO.
Yeah. That's what you need to do this afternoon. That's your afternoon project.
All right, that's what I'll go do then. We'll dip out of here and I'll go watch Dune.
How about that?
How about them apples? Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Ben, what are we doing next week? Do we know yet?
I hadn't got there yet. We'll see. We'll let you guys know.
We'll figure it out. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the holiday with your families. We'll see you all next week.